The following recording is a production of Kickin' Out at 2 in conjunction with the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network and is intended for private use only. For more information, head on over to facebook.com/Kickin' Out at 2 or our Twitter handle @KickinOut2, along with searching Retromania with a W on any and all podcast platforms available to listen to archive shows such as this and all the great content of the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network. Evergreen content at your fingertips anytime at your listening pleasure. And with that being said, we thank you for listening and hope you enjoy the show.
Happy New Year. It is 2025, and this is the first episode of Kickin' Out at 2. I'm your host, Dave Rosenbluth, and thank you for all pressing play, hitting download, liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing. This podcast is a part of the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network. This podcast, this episode in particular, is going to be covering ECW Guilty as Charged 2000. It was actually a byproduct of all of you that voted in the polls on social media. So thank you all very much for hitting those buttons and telling me what you want to hear. So we're going to do a recap or a review of the ECW pay-per-view from 2000, Guilty as Charged, January 9th, 2000, which just so happens to be my birthday. So 25 years ago, next week will be the 25-year anniversary. But before I do all that, head on over to Retromania on Podbean. By searching Retromania with a W, you'll find this show as well as all the backlogged archives from the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network, like Marking Out the Days, like Cool Truth of AC, this show Kicking Out at 2, and so much other great evergreen content at your fingertips. So head on over there, Retromania with a W, or search Retromania on any podcast platform available, and you'll find all the content over there as well. Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, all that good stuff. You'll find it all over there. So head on over. You guys have been smashing the archives, I'll say that, in the last couple of months. I appreciate it. Checking out older shows of Kicking Out at 2, as well as all the other older content over on Retromania as well. So thank you all for doing that. Appreciate the love and support, and appreciate all of you. So thank you. Now, got all the pleasantries out of the way. Before we even get into the recap of ECW Guilty as Charged 2000, I wanted to share my thoughts and preview, if you will, the upcoming debut of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. At the time of this recording, which so happens to be January 1st, 2025, we are just roughly a few days away from the debut of Raw on Netflix, which is going to be a game changer. It's going to be available in over 280-something million households all over the world. The largest reach that WWE has ever had with their flagship program, Monday Night Raw. So a lot of big things headed our way as wrestling fans for this episode of Raw in particular. Let me start with what's advertised, and I'll get into speculation with all that good stuff. Jey Uso taking on Drew McIntyre. Now, this rivalry has really been several years in the making. Drew and Jey, as well as Drew and the Bloodline. And I've been digging Drew the last year and a half or so with the stuff he did with Punk, and now what he's doing, systematically taking out the Bloodline one by one. He's gotten Jimmy, he's gotten Sammy, now it's Jey's turn, and eventually it'll lead to Roman. Now I'll get to that shortly. But these two are going to put on a great match, no doubt about it. I don't have any doubt whatsoever. They got great chemistry. They've had matches before on Raw, and I don't think they're going to disappoint. Jey Uso is super over right now. Super over. And, excuse me, I think it is imperative in this particular instance for Drew McIntyre to get the victory. Drew has been on a hot streak, coming off the stuff with Punk, the Hell in the Cell match late last year. And I think Jey losing is the right thing for this story and for Drew's trajectory. And Jey losing could pivot off to some other things that he could do within the bloodline, the OG bloodline, or on his own. But man, every time Jey comes out, and I've been in arenas when he's come out, oh my goodness, the place just goes nuts. And he's got that like young, he holds that demographic that Jeff Hardy held, where they're young, impressionable kids doing the hand signals. He's got that popular yeet catchphrase. I mean, I can't tell you how well they have built up Jey Uso in the last several years, going all the way back to the early incarnation of the bloodline when he was Roman's right-hand man, and how Roman had treated him and for years put him down and treated him like he was beneath him, only to build him back up, and look where he's at now. I mean, he's just, in my opinion, he's in that top 5 babyface in WWE as a whole. You know, Cody, Roman, Jay's probably in there, and I would even say top 3. Just how popular he is. So Jey Uso losing to Drew McIntyre in this instance won't hurt him, and I think it will help further Drew on whatever goal he is trying to attain, and that's getting through the bloodline to eventually make it to Roman. Now, does that lead to a match with him and Roman at WrestleMania? Maybe some sort of interaction between the two of them at the Royal Rumble? Well, that all depends on Roman and Solo, who will also be taking part in the Tribal Combat match for the Ula Fala on that same episode of Raw on Netflix. And, I mean, me personally, Roman and Solo does not scream a WrestleMania main event or a WrestleMania headline match. It just doesn't. I think Solo's done a tremendous job in the position that he's been put in, and he will continue to grow. But do I think he's ready for a one-on-one match on a big stage like WrestleMania with Roman Reigns? No, I don't think so. I think this is the stopgap for what Roman is eventually going to get to. And could it be Drew McIntyre? It's very possible. Could Drew have a part in this match after defeating Jey and then helping Solo gain the Ula Fala and be the undisputed tribal chief? It's very possible, okay? But that also leads me to my next point, that being The Rock. The Rock isn't advertised, but The Rock's been in those video packages hyping up Raw on Netflix. So I would imagine Los Angeles, Hollywood, the final boss, making his appearance at the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, California. Could it be as a part of this match between Solo and Roman? Okay. Roman, the last time we saw Rock on WWE programming, he delivered a people's eyebrow and he held up 3 fingers and then did the slashing of the throat. Now, what did that mean? Did that mean that he beat Cody 1-2-3 at WrestleMania earlier that year and that he's next in line for a title shot? Because Roman, heading into that Bad Blood pay-per-view, told Cody, I'll team with you, but after we're done, I'm coming for that title. Does The Rock have any animosity towards Roman Reigns for even teaming with Cody Rhodes? If you recall, the night after WrestleMania, when Cody Rhodes had his championship celebration, The Rock came out and he said, when I return, I'm coming for you, and I might be coming for that championship. Now, The Rock is also a member of the TKO board. That's something that has been mentioned on television. Will Rock insert himself into a title match? Will Rock insert himself into the Royal Rumble match to get that title? I honestly don't know. But there's so many different avenues that have been so exciting to explore upon with WWE programming. It's made WWE programming fun again, to the point where I don't even care what the outcome is, because I know what the outcome is going to be good regardless. It's not going to be disappointing because their creative has been on a roll in the last year and a half. And they have delivered time and time and time again. They have rewarded us fans with our patience in following these long-term stories, and they've delivered. And I think there's an opportunity for The Rock's return to deliver. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, what's his role in Solo and Roman's match for the Ula Fala, if he even makes an appearance? Is he there to kind of be the middleman between the two? Or are we going to know his true intentions? Me personally, I said this, I might have said this on this podcast, I've said it before, I truly believe that The Rock's role in this bloodline story is that he is the one that helped set up this new bloodline to take down Roman and his empire. I really believe that. He's the one behind Solo, gathering all the troops and creating his own bloodline to counter Roman, because Roman had failed. Roman lost the championship to Cody. When the deck was stacked against Cody, Roman couldn't get the job done. and he was beaten at his own game by Cody Rhodes. So is The Rock out for revenge? Does The Rock harbor any resentment towards Roman Reigns? Originally, if you remember last year, the original match was supposed to be The Rock and Roman at WrestleMania 40 for the championship. It was manufactured on television as that until the We Want Cody movement came into play, and it forced WWE Creative to change and pivot, and it moved us to the huge main events on night 1 and night 2. Cody and Seth against Rock and Roman. If the Bloodline win, then Roman and Cody the next night at WrestleMania Sunday will be a Bloodline rules match. We all saw how that went down. So, is Rock returning for the purpose of putting Roman out and being the brains behind Solo's new bloodline with Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu? And will it grow? Because everyone has assumed that there's going to be more with all these different family members on the indie scene and in the pipeline of the developmental system. Is there going to be more? Maybe The Rock's going to have some involvement in that too as well. Me personally, I want to see Rock and Roman at WrestleMania. I wanted to see it last year, but I really wanted to see Cody finish that story more. Now there's more. There's more reasons based off of what took place last year and how this bloodline story has unfolded from WrestleMania 40, the end of WrestleMania 40 till now, till currently January of 2025, where I think there's so much meat on the bone that you can do Rock and Roman, and it doesn't have to be this 6, 7, 8, 9-month buildup of just the two of them. There's so much left out there on the table for them to acknowledge, pardon the pun, to get us that big dream match. And in Las Vegas, of all places. Vegas. Sin City. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think they held off this match between The Rock and Roman so they can hold it in Minneapolis, Minnesota at a WrestleMania. Or they could hold it in Nashville, Tennessee at a WrestleMania. I mean, I think, if anything, they knew that Vegas was in the pipeline, and they thought, you know what, we can pivot, and we can wait a year. Excuse the buzzer, that's my dryer in the background telling me that I need to get the clothes out of the dryer. Anyhow, Rock and Roman, Vegas, it writes itself. With everything that has gone down, I'm hoping that The Rock's involvement, if he does appear on this Netflix special, is a part of the Tribal Combat match with Solo and Roman. And then we finally start to set the table, if you will, pardon the pun again, for Rock and Roman. Now, I personally was hoping that if Rock were to have returned, he would have that match with Cody at the Royal Rumble. And then it would, whatever followed that would lead to Rock and Roman. Now, do I still think there's a chance that Rock's character's intentions are going to be set on Cody, at this Netflix debut? Maybe so. Maybe Rock announces that he's going to be entering the Royal Rumble match at the Netflix debut, with his intentions being for the WWE Championship. And Roman announces his intentions of entering the Royal Rumble after defeating Solo Sikoa and taking back the Ulafala as the rightful tribal chief of the bloodline. And maybe that's where things get started. And then you dig up all the history, and then it's revealed that Rock is the one behind Solo in this new bloodline. And boom, we're off to WrestleMania. It's very possible. Very possible. Speaking of Cody, him and Kevin Owens are scheduled for a ladder match for the undisputed WWE Championship with the classic Winged Eagle belt hanging over as well. Looking forward to that match at the Royal Rumble. I'll talk more about that at a later date. Also set for this Netflix special is Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Women's World Championship. I think it's about time Rhea gets her belt back. I think Liv has done a tremendous job stepping up into that role. She's become a major player in the women's division with the absence of a Charlotte Flair and a Becky Lynch. She's really stepped up, and she's cemented herself. And hopefully with a loss and losing the championship, this sets her up for something significant to take place at WrestleMania against maybe somebody like a Charlotte Flair or a Becky Lynch or whomever. But as long as Liv has a significant spot on the card. Me personally, this is just a pipe dream, but I've discussed this with my brother, Justin, on numerous occasions, and he kind of put the bug in my ear a little bit, but I would love to see Rhea Ripley take on Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania and build this man versus woman kind of vibe. And I think with the current creative regime, they can make it work so it doesn't come off very distasteful of a male beating up a female. I mean, there's been so much meat on the bone between Rhea and Dominic screwing Rhea and eventually her getting kicked out of Judgment Day and Liv taking her spot, that Rhea getting the Women's Championship back is sweet, but it would be sweeter if she was able to get her hands on Dominic Mysterio. I'm hoping that maybe we get that. Maybe we get, Rhea winning, but she's not done with Dom yet. And it leads to a match on a bigger stage, maybe a WrestleMania. If not a WrestleMania, maybe they do it at Elimination Chamber in Toronto at Skydome. I mean, who knows? Or maybe they hype it up for a future Netflix episode of Raw. There's a lot of cool stuff to be had on these early episodes of Netflix on Raw. Between returns and debuts and all this other stuff. I mean, there's been talk of Randy Orton maybe returning at this Netflix special coming up in a few days. Maybe they'll save that for a later date. There's been even talk of a debut of Pentagon Jr. from AEW. We saw the graphics the other day on Monday Night Raw. Maybe we'll see that take place on this episode. Or maybe it will be revealed that he's going to be debuting on a future episode of Monday Night Raw. Who knows? I'm sure Cody and Kevin Owens are going to have a part in being there on this debut episode of Raw on Netflix. But the big one for me is this is going to be the first date that John Cena will appear on WWE programming as a part of his Farewell, The Last Time Is Now tour. There's been all kinds of crazy ideas as to how they can pay homage to Cena throughout the course of this year in 2025. Some have talked about maybe him bringing back the United States Open Challenge. Some have even talked about him winning the World Championship from Gunther at WrestleMania after winning the Royal Rumble, or maybe even winning Elimination Chamber. There's been so many names that have been thrown on the table from fans that want to see face John Cena in his farewell tour. We're talking Drew McIntyre, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Braun Breaker, Gunther, Roman Reigns. Even The Rock's name has been thrown out there. CM Punk. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And even Drew McIntyre has been thrown out there, too. So many names. And even some young guys, too. Jey Uso. There's so many different names of people that have been thrown out there to face Cena. Last I checked, he's working 35 to 40 dates this year. But more recently, a PR statement came out from WWE that revealed that John Cena was going to be working full-time in this last year. So I don't know if that means he's working a full schedule. I don't know if it means he's going to be working non-televised events as well as premium live events as well as Raw on Netflix. And I would imagine that they're going to have John Cena on SmackDown as well. I don't think John Cena is going to be married to Monday Night Raw, but I would imagine that Cena's intentions are going to be made clear at this episode of Raw debuting on Netflix. Most likely, I would guess that he'll announce his entry into the Royal Rumble match, and maybe we'll see a little tease with him and Gunther. Maybe we'll see a little tease with him and Cody. And I think honestly, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole just yet, but I'm going to throw it out there as an early candidate for John Cena's final match is for him to take on Cody Rhodes for the championship. His last match for the title against the guy that he can pass the torch to, because let's be honest, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Cody Rhodes is this era's version of John Cena, but the people actually are behind him. There's no mixed reaction from the audience anymore like there was for Cena. Okay? Cody is everything that they wanted in John Cena. Okay? And he's fulfilling that. He's fulfilling those obligations as the champion, as the flag bearer, as the face of the company, or one of the faces, I should say, because we can have an argument about that as well. And so, Cody, Cena, that's an early candidate for me for Cena's last match. But one way or another, we're going to be in for a hell of a ride when it comes to John Cena debuting or returning and giving us his last dance in WWE on the debut episode of Raw on Netflix. So looking forward to that. And then there's the main event. Seth Rollins, CM Punk. They had a hell of a promo. These two motherfuckers cooked the other night. Going back and forth with each other. You saw the little jabs at AEW and Tony Khan in there. Punk's history from leaving the company. His relationship with Rollins. I mean, they hit every point. One didn't overshadow the other. The big debate online was who had the advantage in the promo. And I think it was a dead tie. Both guys had such fire and such passion in their promos. They weren't talking over each other. It was the whole segment was very well done. In 6 minutes and 45 seconds, they got me excited to watch the upcoming episode of Raw on Netflix with them as the main event. Hopefully it's the main event. I think it should be the main event, personally. We don't know for sure if it's the main event. People are assuming it's going to be Roman and Solo, and then maybe if Rock appears, that's how you close the show, but I don't know. I think Seth and Punk deserve the main event, and I think they're going to put on a hell of a match, and I hope that this doesn't end after January 6th. It doesn't end on the debut of Raw on Netflix. I hope that whatever takes place in this match, it continues and it leads to a program with the two of them at Mania. Whether it's for a title down the line, I would imagine that the championship is going to be put into play in this scenario. Now, whether that's either them holding the title or whether that's both of them going after the champion Gunther, time will tell. But I think these two are gonna knock it out of the park, and we're gonna be in for one hell of a debut episode of Raw on Netflix. Now, as of this recording, it's not been made clear if Raw on Netflix is gonna move to 3 hours. SmackDown moved to USA, and they were originally 2 hours, but now they're going to be starting at 3 hours coming up, as a matter of fact, later this week. And so everyone's assuming that Raw is going to go to 3 hours, but nothing has been set in stone yet. I think because of the streaming aspect of it, I think it's going to kind of be open-ended. I think they're going to toy around with some of that, where they have that time and they might be able to go past the 2 hours. Maybe they'll go 2 hours, 15 minutes, or 2 hours and 25 minutes, or maybe they'll go 2.5 hours, or maybe they'll just say, you know what, tonight's episode's 3 hours long, and the last hour is commercial free. I mean, nothing's been set in stone yet. I've not been a fan of the 3-hour Raws in the last 12 years or so. I'll be perfectly honest with you. When Raw went back to 2 hours in the fall, it was much easier to digest. Now, when Triple H took over creative and Vince McMahon was out, some of those 3-hour Raws were a blast. Not every one of them was a home run. So I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do with a 3-hour SmackDown, and if Raw goes to 3 hours, what they're going to do with that as well. It's being said that Raw and Netflix will have ads. Even if you have an ad-free package to your Netflix deal, which I do, Raw is going to still have ads. So I don't know how they're going to make up for those folks that have the ad-free service as part of Netflix. Maybe we'll get to see the action. Sometimes they have the split screen. Maybe the commentary will still take place during the split screen on Raw with the advertisements, or maybe there will be like QR codes for advertisements in the corner of the screen. I don't know. I'm not a television producer, but I'm just speculating here. Either way, really excited about what's to come for WWE with the debut of Raw on Netflix as we head into the busiest season of the year as a wrestling fan. That's WrestleMania season. So now, before I get into my ECW Guilty as Charged recap, I do want to touch on AEW for a couple of minutes. I know I'm not going to dedicate a whole podcast to it, but I want to be fair to those that listen to this podcast that are AEW fans. I'll be honest, I have not watched the program religiously. I've maybe caught clips here and there. I've seen a lot of chatter of how poorly produced and constructive creatively that the programming is. I think it's been watered down with all the shows that they've had between Collision, Rampage, and Dynamite. I think they have an overinflated roster that they don't know what to do with at times. And I've said this before on previous episodes, but at the end of the day, it's just constructive criticism. Their program might not be my cup of tea, but there's guys on their program I will go out of my way to watch. I still go out of my way to watch Christian or Swerve or even some of the MJF stuff, even though his most recent stuff with Adam Cole has not been hitting with most fans. I will still go out of my way to watch some of that stuff if I see a clip or if I hear a match was good. I'll go check this out. I heard that the more recent television tapings at the Hammerstein Ballroom were very well received. Those New York crowds, especially here in the Northeast, they know how to bring it, and I think that helped the presentation of their programming. It's been documented publicly that they are going to be emanating from smaller venues to kind of give you a more intimate feel, which I like personally. It was depressing sometimes watching them in bigger 10, 15,000 seat venues, and they maybe got 2,000 or 3,000 people in there. It just sounded so deflated, and that didn't help me as a viewer watching the program. It almost felt like watching, WWE during COVID with the Thunderdome. It was, and I hated that era. There was little bits and pieces of it that were good, but for the most part, I couldn't stand it. That was the one time in my life as a wrestling fan, and I'm about to be 42 years old, where I went months without religiously watching wrestling every day. A couple of months. I think I went like almost 2 months without watching Raw or SmackDown or even AEW. I kept up with some of it, like if I read something or I saw a clip on social media, but to sit down and actually watch a show from start to finish, I think I went like 2 or 3 months without watching any of those shows. Or if I heard something was good, I'd fast forward to that part and I'd watch it. That's what AEW has felt like to me when I've caught it more recently, and I haven't watched it religiously. But my hope is that as a wrestling fan, that AEW sticks around, because there's plenty of talented people on that roster that deserve an opportunity to shine on television and entertain me and the millions of wrestling fans out there. Okay? I want them to succeed. I want more creative storytelling from them with logic. But I also want an alternative to what WWE has as well. I want a good mixture of everything. Give me logic and sound storytelling, but give me a wild, chaotic car crash of a spot fest as well. Give me a little bit of everything and kind of tighten it up a little bit and really evaluate. In my opinion, I think Tony Khan needs to evaluate who he has on his roster, what they're worth to him, and what he's going to do with them moving forward. Because I just think there's way too many guys, too many talented guys that are just kind of left out in the shuffle. And not to mention, I forgot about Ring of Honor, the Ring of Honor brand that he has under his umbrella as well. There's just way too much for me to keep track of. And I'm sure there's some talented folks over there on that show that deserve an opportunity to shine. So hopefully, with this move, the new television deal he got with Warner Brothers Discovery, and the move to the Max streaming service, now all of AEW's library is over on Max. You can find it over there. We might see some bigger and better things coming for them. So now that I got that out of the way, okay, hopefully, as a wrestling fan, that we eat good for 2025. And I got a feeling we will. I truly do. All right, let's get into this recap here. ECW Guilty as Charged 2000 on January the 9th, 2000 from Birmingham, Alabama. The show opens with Styles and Cyrus in the ring with their typical back and forth banter. Cyrus playing up his network representative gimmick, making threats to Styles if he gets out of line on commentary, what the network might have in store for him. You get your asshole and you suck dick chance to Cyrus, and then out of nowhere comes Joel Gertner to interrupt Cyrus with his typical NC-17 ring introduction. And I actually quoted this here. Joel, all the women in Alabama want to take me to court because they've swallowed my stuff and want child support. But if being hung is a crime, then I'm guilty as charged because the women all know that I'm pretty damn large. Not one of his best ones, but it got a solid reaction from the Birmingham, Alabama faithful. Styles then sends it to the cold open video package with Guilty as Charged presented to you by the Acclaim video game, ECW. Our opening match here has CW Anderson with Louis Dangerously taking on Mikey Whipwreck. Louis Dangerously playing a Paul E. Dangerously gimmick and recreating the new Dangerous Alliance. Louis would steal the microphone from the ring announcer to rip on the Birmingham locals and then introduce himself along with his clients, cornerman Beautiful Billy Wiles, which I'm assuming is a knock on Beautiful Bobby Eaton and being in the Birmingham, Alabama area. And the enforcer, C.W. Anderson from the New Dangerous Alliance. The bell rings as Wiles jumps Mikey from behind, but Whipwreck manages to escape and turn the tables on him and Anderson, disposing of Wiles to the outside. The action would eventually spill out to the floor early on, with Wiles interjecting himself throughout the exchange. Joey Styles mentions on commentary that Whipwreck's return to the company comes after a 6-month stint in that other place, which he didn't mention, which just so happened to be WCW. Wiles would continue to interject himself throughout the match, with Whipwreck continuing to fend him off. The finish comes when Louis tosses Anderson the cell phone. Whipwreck ducks, but runs into Louis' phone with a shot to the head, followed by a spine buster to Whipwreck for the win. Your winner, C.W. Anderson. Not a great match to open this show. I felt like it was rushed. Felt like something you would watch on their television program and not a pay-per-view quality match. But with a little bit more time, I think it could have been better and it could have been a solid opening match. We cut back to Joey Styles and Cyrus as they run down the tag team title match between Raven and Dreamer against the Impact players, as well as RVD and Sabu for the TV title, as Simon Diamond makes his way out for the next match, which will see Simon Diamond with his butler, Finch, Danny Doring and Roadkill with Elektra taking on the team of Nova, Kid Cash, and Jazz in a 6-person tag team match. Styles notes on commentary that Kid Cash is working with a broken jaw and that it's been wired shut after a run-in with the Dupp brothers on a recent episode of ECW television. I don't recall if that's a work or a shoot or not, but at the time as I was watching it sounded like it's a little foreshadowing for something to take place in this match involving Kid Cash and his injury. So I don't know. We'll see. Finch does the ring introduction for Simon Diamond. I guess that's the theme on this show with the first 2 matches. Heel managers stealing the microphone from the ring announcers. Jazz would start things out, getting the upper hand on the heels, most notably with a monkey flip and a Jazz Stinger, a.k.a. a face plant, to Simon Diamond. Kid Cash then springboard plancha to the outside onto Simon Diamond, and the return of his bodyguard, Dick, which got a typical ECW chant from the Birmingham crowd. There'd be action all over the ringside area. On commentary, we'd get typical Dick jokes from Joey Styles, with Chaz's joking on Dick, among others. Pretty typical for that era of wrestling, especially ECW. They were able to get away with a lot of stuff like that on their programming, especially pay-per-view. Basically, this tag match, it had gotten out of hand early on. No control from the referee, no real format of tagging in and out of this match. It almost resembled a Lucha Libre tag team match, where guys were just coming in and out, and that was considered a tag. Doring and Roadkill would then hit a sequence of double team moves on Nova, but unsuccessful. Kid Cash and Jazz nowhere to be found as they're continuing to put the work on the Nova. All of a sudden, Chris Chetty arrives, trying to fire up Nova, ready to receive the hot tag, which even commentary mentioned, like, is he legal in this match? Because he wasn't advertised to be a part of this match. Chetty would eventually tag himself in, which the ref accepted, and deliver a series of clotheslines to Doring and some sidekicks to Roadkill, as the action would eventually spill out to the outside ringside area yet again. And now I know where the Young Bucks and that little bald, skinny referee got this spot from. Because here comes the Pro Wrestling Guerrilla spot of the match as the referee jumps off the top rope to the outside with a plancha to all 4 men. I didn't understand that. Didn't get that. I didn't watch ECW programming religiously back then, so I don't know if maybe this particular referee had a storyline going on with these guys and he finally got his revenge. I don't know. It wasn't really mentioned on commentary. It was actually treated as like a surprise, like, what's the referee doing getting involved like this? Didn't make any sense. It got a decent pop, but after that, it was pretty much forgotten about as the match would continue. Elektra, valet for Doring and Roadkill, would get on the apron and taunt Chris Chetty, even taking her robe off and then slapping Chris Chetty in the face. Chetty responds by grabbing Elektra and delivering a body slam to her. that got a pretty decent pop. But Danny Dorian comes in to make the save, and then he goes up top, but is stopped by Nova. And then out of nowhere, we see Roadkill delivering a top rope splash to Chetty for the win. Post-match, you see the Dupp brothers attack Roadkill and Chris Chetty, but Dorian and Nova run in to make the save with chairs. Yeah, this match, all over the place. Didn't understand the idea of the ref getting involved like that, or even why Chetty was automatically involved in the match, and how he could legally take the pinfall. But, this is ECW, and, they were pretty much, all over the place and didn't really stick to any type of rules. To be honest with you, the opening match deserved more time than this. Yeah. First two matches not really getting off to a good start with this pay-per-view. Next up, Mike Awesome and Judge Jeff Jones are backstage, hyping up the world title match with Spike Dudley later in the night. And as I was watching this, I looked and realized, Awesome was such a big presence. I can understand why they wanted a mouthpiece for him, because he wasn't the greatest talker, but his manager did nothing for me whatsoever. Judge Jeff Jones, he just did nothing. I didn't get it or understand the gimmick. I didn't think he was a great talker. And in fact, Awesome even, they even gave Awesome the mic. And, he dropped an F-bomb bragging about knocking out Spike Dudley's girlfriend's teeth. But he actually held his own on the microphone, aside from that, the typical profanity-laced statement that he made in his promo. So what was the purpose of Judge Jeff Jones with Mike Awesome if Mike Awesome actually was a halfway decent talker? I mean, maybe they should have put somebody else with him, man. I don't know, maybe a Bill Alfonso, or maybe they put him with a valet. I don't know. I didn't see the appeal with Mike Awesome and Judge Jeff Jones. I didn't. We cut to Spike Dudley, who is with his toothless girlfriend, and he's about ready to cut a promo, but in the background you hear Heyman telling Spike to start over his promo. Spike loses it, throwing trash cans, cussing, telling Awesome he's not a fucking actor, etc. I don't know. I'm guessing this was their version of breaking the fourth wall here, and I just didn't understand it. Didn't get how that was a reason to put that into this storyline here. I mean, to the best of my recollection, the story between Awesome and Spike Dudley was that Awesome was this big monster bully and Spike was this little underdog, and Awesome, would bully people around, and Spike was the one that kind of stood up for all the underdogs, and he took an ass kicking in the process. So I don't get where this whole, kind of kayfabe shoot element came into play for this storyline. Maybe I have to watch more ECW programming to determine that. I'm not sure. I just thought it was kind of silly. Up next, Steve Corino comes out with Tajiri for this next match, followed by Super Crazy. And then basically the rules of this match, this is a tag team match. And Tajiri would have to pick a partner, and Super Crazy would have to pick a partner. But Steve Corino grabbed the microphone, and he's met with loud shut the fuck up chants from the Birmingham locals. And Corino then reveals that Tajiri, the partner that Tajiri has chosen, will be none other than Super Crazy, which was confusing to the audience, confusing to commentary, confusing to me. Because the match was advertised as Corino, or as Crazy, with a partner of his choice against Tajiri versus a partner of his choice. But Little Guido from the FBI comes out, and he grabs the microphone, and he expresses his displeasure towards Steve Corino that he wasn't picked for the tag team match. Corino says he's the one calling the shots in ECW, which leads to Paul Heyman, the ECW owner, making his way out on stage, as he's there to refute those claims made by Corino, but also reveals that he actually likes Corino's idea, kind of keeping everybody on their toes, but says that Little Guido will have a partner tonight for this tag match, and it will be the new effing show Jerry Lynn, which leads to the tag team match of Little Guido and Jerry Lynn taking on Super Crazy and Tajiri. This match, a very good mixture of styles between all four of these guys. Early on, there was a great sequence between Crazy and Jerry Lynn with a series of arm drags and counters. It got a pretty strong pop from the crowd. Tajiri and Guido would then get involved, starting off with stiff kicks and slaps to the head. The crowd was into this match, and everyone was getting a chance to shine without overshadowing the others. I thought it was very well done. Both teams early on were not really working together as a team. It felt like watching two singles matches, but at the same time. But it wasn't bad. It was just different. Some other notable moments in the match saw Jerry Lynn perform a suicide plancha off the top rope onto Super Crazy on the floor, followed by Tajiri delivering an acai moonsault onto the floor onto both of them. Super Crazy then later would deliver a moonsault off the balcony into the crowd onto Little Guido. And then a double tornado DDT by Jerry Lynn and Little Guido to Super Crazy and Tajiri, which showed the first semblance of teamwork in the match. Tajiri would then deliver the green mist to Jerry Lynn, setting up a DDT by Super Crazy, but only getting a 2 count. The finish saw Little Guido turn on Jerry Lynn by delivering a modified Unprettier, not called that at the time. Tajiri would then go for the cover. Crazy tries to stop Tajiri. Tajiri kicks Crazy in the head, followed by a brainbuster to Jerry Lynn for the win. Fun match start to finish. It was an interesting story going in with the picking of the partners. I would say so far this is match of the night. Definitely made up for the previous 2 matches being stinkers on this card. Post-match, we would see Steve Corino, Jack Victory, Tajiri, and Wildfire Tommy Rich beat on Jerry Lynn as Corino grabs the mic, taunting him, and starts to trash talk the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, which would then lead to Dusty Rhodes, baby. Enter in the ring behind Corino and company, delivering bionic elbows for everybody, courtesy of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, until Rhino shows up, laying out Dusty with the rest of the crew. The ECW locker room would then empty out to make the save for Dusty. Corino takes Dusty's cowboy hat, declaring himself the new king of Extreme Championship Wrestling. Another breaking the fourth wall element here is Paul Heyman and a mixture of the heels and babyface of the roster were the ones that came out to check on Dusty. Dusty tries to leave the ring on his own accord as the crowd chants for Dusty. The post-match angle hit very well with the crowd. They were into it. Dusty got a big pop. I mean, he was big down south, Birmingham, Alabama, no different. And at that time in 2000, it was a culture shock for me knowing that, good old Southern boy Dusty Rhodes was in ECW, but that's what also made ECW what it was, very unpredictable. You wouldn't expect a guy like Dusty Rhodes to be a part of that program, and he fit in like a glove. Yeah, the angle with him and Corino did very well, and I enjoyed it. And as I continue covering the year 2000 on this podcast, I'm going to look forward to eventually watching their showdown in the Texas Bull Rope match in just a few months. Backstage, we get New Jack in a stairwell cutting a promo. Tells a weird story about getting stabbed in the ass cheek from an old friend of his growing up in the streets to really sell the upcoming match with Angel of the Baldies. If you're a diehard ECW guy, then this New Jack promo is for you. But I was never a New Jack guy. As we move on to the King of the Streets match featuring New Jack against Angel with the Baldies. What do you expect in a match like this involving New Jack? Plunder, baby, plunder everywhere. And that's pretty much what we got. What can I say that hasn't been said about a New Jack match in ECW? You got the shitty generic hip-hop theme music that plays in the background to cover over Ice Cube's Natural Born Thriller song that used to accompany his matches because Peacock and WWE don't want to pay the rights to the music, and I don't blame them. We saw cheese graters, road signs, the hood or a roof of a car, maybe, possibly a Jeep. There was blood too. More of that shitty generic hip-hop music playing. A vacuum cleaner to the groin of Angel by New Jack. That definitely looked like it hurt. Vic Grimes would get him some of New Jack on the floor, along with DeVito. That would lead to New Jack with another balcony dive from the hard camera onto Grimes through a table, because that's never happened in any of his matches before. The match would eventually make its way back into the ring with more plunder. Staple gun to the head by New Jack onto DeVito. That brings us to the finish where Angel nails New Jack in the head with a heavy-duty garden shovel for the victory. If you've seen one New Jack match, you've seen them all. Let's move on. Bill Alfonso backstage earlier in the day trying to hype up RVD for his promo. It was a funny moment in this. The window to their dressing room was open, and you could hear all kinds of noise coming from the outside, like cars, honking horns, just, overall like noise and activity in the street outside of this building. RVD shuts it, or Fonzie shuts it pretty quickly. And then, this was funny. RVD's talking about how it's the year 2000, it's the millennium, and all these new things have arrived, and he said, new season of The Sopranos. And Fonzie goes, what? No fucking ZD? Which I got a chuckle out of it because I'm a big Sopranos guy. For those of you out there that like Sopranos, I'm sure, or love Sopranos, that are diehard Sopranos fans, I'm sure you would get the reference completely. But for those of you that aren't, there was a scene in the first season where Tony and Carmela and the family, they were going to have Sunday dinner. They had the priest over, the kids were over, and Tony's mom, Olivia, was supposed to come over. And Tony had a very contentious relationship with Olivia, dating back to his childhood. And so Olivia was getting older, and the subject of her going into a retirement community, a.k.a. a nursing home, was talked about, and she had all kinds of anxiety, and so she didn't want to come to dinner. And AJ was standing right there, and Tony and Carmela were talking about Olivia not coming to dinner, and AJ goes, what? No fucking ZD? And they're like, hey, watch your mouth. And the priest was right there. So that's a line that my stepson uses quite often. Like whenever we talk about Sopranos or we're cooking dinner, if he's over, he'll be like, what? No fucking ZD? And, it still gets a pop every time, at least in my household. My wife doesn't get it, but, I certainly do. So it pops me so Anthony can continue popping me with the Sopranos references. We talk about that shit all the time. Yeah, I thought it was funny. For the most part, this RVD promo was typical. He puts himself over. He's the greatest TV champion. He's beat this guy, that guy, the other guy. He's the whole effing show, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And then immediately after the RVD promo, you see Fonzie leave his dressing room, and then he goes into Sabu's dressing room, and he gasses him up about being, on his side for the match against RVD, which, I mean, come on. If you're going to try to get me to believe that Fonzie's playing in the middle with both sides, the least you can do is have the two guys' dressing rooms further apart than one next door to the other. I mean, come on. Have some common sense here, for Christ's sakes. Fonzie then guarantees that if Sabu can't beat Rob Van Dam, that Sabu will pack his bags and walk out tonight. Which leads us to our next match for the television championship, the ECW television championship. Rob Van Dam defending the title against Sabu. As with any Sabu match, this match pretty much went everywhere, and it included tables and chairs. Notable moments in this match include a corkscrew guillotine leg drop from RVD to Sabu over the guardrail, RVD delivering a running somersault plancha to Sabu onto the outside, Sabu then delivering a sunset flip Arabian powerbomb to the outside floor in the ringside area. Sabu then places RVD on a table draped over the corner of the guardrails on the outside and splashes him off the top turnbuckle through the table. Sabu got hurt in the process. No kidding, right? Fonzie then slides RVD a chair and then gives the chair to Sabu, and both men go back and forth attempting to hit each other with the chairs, but blocking each other's chair shots, really emphasizing Fonzie's loyalty to both guys. So I kind of actually dug that spot because we saw in the promo prior that Fonzie was kind of playing both sides to the middle, and so he's still kind of confused as to whose side he's truly on. He didn't come out with Van Dam or Sabu. He came out first, and then the other two came out after him. So I liked how they kept the continuity of following up Fonzie's issues with whose side he's on. Later in the match, both men want Fonzie to give him a chair, but he finally refuses. He's had enough. RVD then nails Fonzie with a Terminator, but Sabu nails RVD with the chair. The finish comes when Sabu goes for a triple jump moonsault into a chair placed onto RVD, but Van Dam nails Sabu with the chair in the head to then set up a 5-star frog splash for the win. It was a fun match. I'll be honest with you. I'm a big RVD guy. I wasn't the biggest Sabu guy. And so the last Sabu match I watched was that match with him and Chris Candido at November to Remember 2000, which you can find in the archives that Dennis and I recapped a couple of months ago. And I was surprised at how good the match it was, but aside from seeing the triple jump moonsaults and the stuff with the chairs and the Arabian face busters through the tables, Sabu's kind of like New Jack in the sense that, like, what haven't you seen in a Sabu match? And the stuff with RVD brought out the best of him. So, fun match. I liked it. Exceeded, I shouldn't say exceeded my expectations, but it over-delivered for me, and I didn't have high expectations for the match. Fonzie's involvement being stuck in the middle, that worked. It wasn't overdone, and it was done at the right times during the match. We see RVD post-match shake hands with Sabu, and then Sabu flips him off and flips off Fonzie and walks out as commentary continues to speculate Sabu's future in ECW after he declared he would leave the promotion if he couldn't beat RVD. Backstage, we get the Impact players, Just Incredible, Lance Storm, along with Jason and Dawn Marie, getting ready for their ECW Tag Team Championship match against Raven and Tommy Dreamer. They pretty much run down their history of beating up Raven and Dreamer and predict that they're going to win the belts. Nothing special with this promo. On to the tag match. Impact players with Jason and Dawn Marie against Tommy Dreamer with Francine and Raven for the ECW Tag Team Championship. Match starts. All four men are brawling around the ringside area where it eventually makes its way to the stage. And we see Raven and Dreamer toss both Impact players off the stage through tables. Commentary, both Cyrus and Joey Styles continue to dive deep into the history between Raven and Dreamer, wondering when things are going to finally blow up between each other. I don't know. I smell somebody turning, coming soon, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. The action would eventually head back into the ring as the Impact players would take advantage of Dreamer for the majority of the match. Frequent tags in and out to control the pace. Storm accidentally nails Credible with a super kick after Dreamer ducks. Dreamer then nails a DDT to Storm and crawls to the corner where Raven tags himself in, cleans house. Jason would then eat the snot rag from Raven's pocket. Apparently that's a thing. Babyfaces would continue to make the comeback, executing double team moves until Credible counters and gives Raven a That's Incredible tombstone. But comes up short. Dreamer then comes back in, tosses Credible out, but is met with a pile driver by Lance Storm for a 2 count. Storm then sets up a table on the outside for a suplex off the apron, but Dreamer reverses and back body drops Storm through the table, only to be met by a chair from Just Incredible, who's now met with a low blow from Francine, which then leads to Dawn Marie entering for a traditional ECW cat fight, as Joey Styles would say, followed by a Bronco Buster from Francine to Dawn Marie in the corner. Just Incredible would then grab the kendo stick looking to nail Francine, but instead, Raven takes the bullet, pushing her out of the way. Credible then delivers another tombstone for the win, and your new ECW World Tag Team Champions, the Impact players. Shorter match than I expected. The finish was pretty creative with Raven kind of eating the bullet. Fun sequence to get us there. Not a bad match, but nothing special either. We cut to the parking lot as Steve Corino is celebrating with Rhino and Jack Victory, bragging about destroying the legend of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Rhino then tells the interviewer to shut the fuck up, because apparently that's a thing. At least it was in ECW. I bet you 17-year-old Dave Rosenbluth would have been thrilled, because I like to use the shut the fuck reference a lot, especially with people I work with. Rhino brags about taking out Dusty and then declares himself the number one contender for the ECW Championship as he calls out the winner of tonight's world title main event. And we have reached that point of the main event. Mike Awesome defending the ECW World Heavyweight Championship against Spike Dudley. Spike would enter first and would grab one of the ring crew guys to help him set up numerous tables along the ringside area. Once he finally gets in the ring, he grabs the microphone and he calls out Mike Awesome's big pussy ass to get in the ring and fight him. Awesome's out, and the first thing he does, he overhead power press slams Spike through a table to the outside to kick things off. Woo-hoo. Jesus. I mean, if that doesn't tell you what the match is going to be like, I don't know what will. Spike would then climb back in the ring, as the underdog that he is, and Awesome would grab Spike and toss him over the top rope through 2 tables stacked on top of each other onto the outside arena floor. Awesome continues the assault and throws Spike into the crowd, followed by a running suicide dive to Spike onto fans in the front row. Awesome then would bring Spike in for a slingshot splash, but only getting a 2 count. He would then deliver a clothesline to Spike, followed up by a powerbomb attempt, but Spike counters with a Hurricane Rana to the outside and then a running shoulder block to the floor. Spike would then deliver an acid drop to Awesome on the guardrail, then finds himself a couple of chairs, delivers a few stiff chair shots to Awesome in the head, because CTE wasn't a thing back in 2000, and then Spike delivers a suicide dive, but he gets his foot caught in the ropes. Awesome catches him, throws his face onto the concrete floor, which was pretty brutal just to watch, which led to the typical "you fucked up" chants from the ECW crowd. Shocker. Spike heads back into the ring, delivering a top rope clothesline to Awesome, but Awesome no-sells it and clotheslines Spike for a 2 count. Spike manages to come back and spears Awesome through the ropes to the outside and grabs a chair, but Awesome boots his face into the chair to gain the momentum. Awesome would then grab a chair and nail Spike into the head on the outside, followed by a top rope suicide plancha to the outside over the guardrail onto Spike and the front row. After coming to, Awesome grabs another table, sets it up, drags Spike over to the table, places him on the ring apron, attempts an Awesome bomb, only for Spike to counter with an acid drop through the table. Spike then nails Awesome with a top rope chair shot off the top turnbuckle to the floor, and then attempts another acid drop, but Awesome counters, tosses Spike through a table set up on the outside. Awesome then drags Spike back into the ring as Judge Jeff Jones, useless of course, but this time not so much, sets up a table where Awesome attempts an Awesome bomb through the table, but Spike counters with an acid drop, only to be countered with a clothesline by Awesome. Mike Awesome then lays Spike out on the table, climbs up to the top, but Spike fights back and climbs up top with Awesome, only to be met with a top rope Awesome bomb through the table for the victory. Still, ECW World Heavyweight Champion Mike Awesome. Whew. All right, that was my favorite match of the night. Go out of your way to watch that match. It was violent. It told a good story of Spike being the underdog the underdog fighting from underneath, with the monster Awesome just continuing to punish him every chance he gets. Not a great pay-per-view by any means, but not terrible. Like I said, go out of your way to watch this match. A very violent affair worth checking out. If I'm going to grade it, I'm going to give this one a C+. So, there you have it. There is my recap of ECW Guilty as Charged 2000 here on Kicking Out at 2. Thank you also very much for pressing play, hitting download, liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing. Looking forward to what we have in store for you in 2025 as we're going to be covering the year 2000. So next month, for the month of February, I'm going to put it up in the polls in a few weeks, but we're going to have another poll contest, if you will, between WCW Super Brawl 2000 and WWF No Way Out 2000. So you choose which show do you want us to cover here on Kicking Out at 2. You can find it on Facebook and Twitter in the next couple of weeks. But before that, coming up at the end of the month, I'm going to be having some Royal Rumble content, if you will. The Cactus Jack Triple H street fight from the year 2000, 25-year anniversary. Dennis and I plan on watching that, as well as a random episode of Saturday night's main event. I'm going to let Dennis choose which episode he wants to watch in preparation for the upcoming Saturday night's main event at the end of the month, heading into the Royal Rumble on February 1st. Speaking of the end of the month, before those shows drop, I'll be taking a short hiatus with my wife as we will be going on a Caribbean cruise for a few weeks. So if you don't see any content on the social media pages, don't fear. We're not going anywhere. We're just taking a short, I shouldn't say short, but a 9-day trip on a cruise, and yeah, we're gonna enjoy ourselves and have a good time and soak up the sun and come back at the end of the month, and hopefully we got a nice tan and get you ready for Royal Rumble and Saturday night's main event coming up at the end of January. So be on the lookout for that content as well. So with that being said, I think it's officially about that time that we put this Extreme show down for the 3 count, and we will see you all next time.